So, welcome to this lecture series on environment and ecology presented by Mentors for IAS in association with Bangalore IAS Academy and Namak APSC. So, in this particular video, we will be discussing about biodiversity in brief, the basic concept about the biodiversity and few other things surrounding around biodiversity. Now, biodiversity is defined as the variability among living organisms from all sources, including terrestrial, marine, and other aquatic ecosystems, and the ecological complexes of which they are a part. So, this includes diversity within species, between species, and of ecosystems. Now, conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity is fundamental to ecological sustainable development. So, biodiversity is a part of our daily lives and livelihood and constitutes resources upon which families, communities, nations, and even the future generations actually depend upon. So, this is nothing but the basic definition or the idea about biodiversity. It is nothing but the different kinds of organisms and species that are present in the ecosystem. So, next what we will do is that we will classify biodiversity into different levels. So, biodiversity is considered to exist at three different levels, that is genetics or genetic diversity, species, that is species diversity, and ecosystems, or also known as community diversity. So, first is genetic diversity. What is genetic diversity? Now, see, genetic diversity is actually concerned with a variation in genes within a particular species. So, genetic diversity allows species to adapt to changing environments, and this diversity aims to ensure that some species survive drastic changes and thus carry on desirable genes. Hence, the survival of individuals ensures the survival of the population. So, if you look outside, if you see different colors of butterflies, different colors of roses, different colors of coral, the diversity in coral reefs, the different shapes and sizes of birds, all of this is nothing but due to genetic diversity. I hope since we've already discussed about speciation, genetic variation, as of now you should be able to appreciate all these concepts. So, this is nothing but genetic diversity. Next is species diversity. Now, species diversity refers to the variety of living organisms on Earth. See, obviously species differs from one another, more so in their genetic makeup, and they do not interbreed in nature. But when it comes to closely related species, however, they have in common much of their hereditary characteristics. For instance, if you take humans and chimpanzees, we share almost 99% of the genes. So, this represents species diversity. So, this is nothing but the ratio of one species population over the total number of organisms across all species in the given biome. So, it is not genetic diversity within the species, but that genetic diversity which may result in different species in itself. I hope you are able to understand. Genetic diversity can exist within a species, whereas species diversity represents different types of species where they will not intermingle meaning interbreed along with each other, and obviously the genetic diversity increases when it comes to different types of species. So, here I want you to make note of one thing. 0 would be infinite diversity and 1 represents only one species present, only one species present. 0 is nothing but infinite diversity, whereas 1 represents only one species present. So, next is your ecosystem or community diversity. Now, this refers to the different types of habitats. See, A habitat is what? It is nothing but the cumulative factor of the climate, vegetation and geography of a region. Again, habitat, all this has been discussed earlier. So there are several kinds of habitats around the world. You can have corals, grasslands, wetland, deserts, mangroves and tropical rainforests, which are obviously your examples. So change in climatic conditions accompanied by the change in vegetation will result in this ecosystem or community diversity. Why does this happen? It is because each species tries to adapt itself to a particular kind of environment. So as the environment changes, species best adapted to that environment becomes predominant. Thus, the variety or diversity of species in the ecosystem is influenced by the nature of the ecosystem. So this is known as ecosystem or community diversity, where the surrounding environment influences the different types of organisms, animals or plants, which that is flora and fauna, which is found in a particular region. So so genetic diversity, species diversity and ecosystem diversity are the three different levels of diversity. Next, we move on to measurement of biodiversity. Now, biodiversity is measured by two major components. One is species richness and two is species evenness. Now, species richness is actually the measure of the number of species found in a community. It is nothing but the number of species found in a particular community. Under species richness, we have alpha diversity, beta diversity and gamma diversity. So what is alpha diversity? Alpha diversity refers to the diversity within a particular area or ecosystem and is usually expressed by the number of species in that particular ecosystem. That is alpha diversity, nothing but the number of species in that ecosystem, the number of species in that ecosystem. Next is beta diversity. Now, beta diversity is it is nothing but a comparison of diversity between ecosystems, usually measured as the change in amount of species between the ecosystems. This is nothing but comparison of diversity between ecosystems, usually measured as a change in amount of species between the ecosystems. Then finally, we have gamma diversity. Gamma diversity is a measure of the overall diversity for the different ecosystems within a region. It is a measure of the overall diversity for the different ecosystems within a region. Then finally, after summing up alpha diversity, beta diversity and gamma diversity under species richness, we now move on to species evenness. So what is species evenness? Species evenness is another measurement of biodiversity, where this species evenness measures the proportion of species at a given site. Nothing but the proportion of species at a given site. For example, low evenness indicates that a few species dominate the site. Example is, low evenness indicates that a few species dominate the site. A few species dominate the site. Okay. Next, we will briefly discuss about how is this biodiversity and food web are related to each other. See, the building blocks of plants, animals and humans are identical and are made of 4 elements, that is carbon, oxygen, nitrogen and hydrogen. These elements are present in the environment in air, water and soil. However, it is only the green plants that can absorb nitrogen from the soil through their roots and use sunlight and water to produce energy by a process called photosynthesis. So these are obviously nothing but your producers. So animals and humans animals and humans who have plants or other animals as their food are known as consumers. So those organisms which consume plants and other animals as food, they are known as consumers. So the chain that links consumers to producers is called the food chain or web. So this is me nothing but trying to kind of refresh everybody's memory if you've forgotten or if you missed out on what is this food web. So I hope you are able to recollect what is this food web. So coming back to this, I'm pretty sure everyone knows that every living creature is found in a food chain, and there are several food chains which can be complex or simple depending on the environment, and when different food chains come together, that is when you have a food web. To cite some examples, you can take grasshoppers eat grass and are then in turn eaten by frogs, frogs in turn are eaten by snakes, snakes in turn may be eaten by say a peacock, for example. Okay, so thus the importance, the reason I'm actually mentioning this is that there's importance of each and every creature in this food web, which is important for the life of different organisms in the ecosystem. So tampering with the biodiversity of the region will result in tampering of the food chain itself, which will have negative results leading to the destruction of the species. Meaning every time a species becomes extinct, the chain is broken, and this in turn will affect many other species including humans, which is now going to push other species as well towards extinction. That is why biodiversity and food web are interrelated, and when you disturb biodiversity, food web is disturbed. When food web is disturbed, it affects the food chain. When food chain is affected, different species also get affected where their survival becomes difficult. So with this, if it is clear, if everybody's understood what is the relationship, now let us move on to the different kinds of services which are provided by biodiversity. What are the services offered by biodiversity? Now see here, biodiversity is what? Biodiversity, sorry, this is not services provided by the food web, it is services provided by biodiversity. My mistake. It is services provided by biodiversity, not food web. Okay. So biodiversity provides a number of natural services for human beings. So one is ecosystem services such as protection of water resources, soil formation, nutrient storage, pollution breakdown and absorption, contribution to climate stability, maintenance of ecosystems. All these are nothing but ecosystem services which are offered by which are possible through biodiversity. Similarly, we can have biological services, for example, food, medicinal resources. You can have food, medicinal resources, ornamental plants, medicinal resources, ornamental plants, breeding stocks, and obviously diversity in genes, species and ecosystem that we've already discussed. Apart from ecosystem services and social services, biodiversity also, apart from ecosystem services and biological services, biodiversity also offers social services such as research, education, recreation, tourism and cultural values. Research, education, recreation, tourism and cultural values. Now, if you've been reading the newspaper or if you've been reading about environment and ecology, there is always concern about biodiversity loss. So therefore, it is important for us to understand what are the causes of biodiversity loss. Now, the loss of biodiversity occurs when either a particular species is destroyed or the habitat essential for its survival is actually damaged. The latter is more common as habitat destruction is inevitable, is this inevitable fallout of development. See, the extinction of species takes place when they are exploited for economic gain or hunted as a sport or for food. So extinction of species may also occur due to environmental reasons like ecological substitutions, biological factors and pathological causes which can be caused either by nature or man. But The kind of biodiversity loss which is taking place as of today, it is mainly due to man-made activities or man-made causes. Yes, causes of biodiversity may be natural causes as well. You can have natural causes such as say floods, earthquakes, landslides or forest fires. This can or this may result in biodiversity loss. But the primary or the main reason as of today, the causes of biodiversity loss, they are nothing but man-made causes. So you can have habitat destruction, uncontrolled commercial exploitation, hunting and poaching, pollution, destruction of coastal areas. All these things are actually leading to biodiversity loss. So if we have discussed about biodiversity loss, let us also discuss briefly about biodiversity conservation. So what is biodiversity conservation? Nothing but conservation of biological diversity, which leads to conservation of essential ecological diversity and preservation of food web or protection of food web and continuity of food chains. So when we talk about biodiversity conservation, there are two modes of conservation of biodiversity. One is ex situ conservation, the other is in situ conservation. So what is ex situ conservation? See, conserving biodiversity outside the areas where they naturally occur is known as ex situ conservation. Meaning, for example, I take a tiger out and I keep the tiger in my home and I protect the tiger. Now I am helping in the protection of tigers, but this is not helping of tigers in its natural environment. So I am keeping the tiger at my home. So it is not in its what do you call as in its natural environment, or it is actually rather outside its natural habitat. Okay, so that is what I am trying to say. So what is ex situ conservation? Conserving biodiversity outside the areas where they naturally occur is known as ex situ conservation. So here animals are reared or plants are cultivated like in zoological parks or botanical gardens. See, reintroduction of the animal or plant into the habitat from where it has become extinct is another form of ex situ conservation as well. I'm pretty sure you would have heard of the Gangetic gharial, which was introduced into the rivers of Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh, where it had become extinct. So all of this becomes a part of your ex situ conservation. Similarly, seed banks, botanical gardens, horticultural gardens and recreational gardens, all these become a part of your ex situ conservation. Then we have in situ conservation. Conserving the animals and plants in their natural habitats is known as in situ conservation. So if conservation takes place in natural parks, sanctuaries, reserved forests, protected forests or biosphere reserves, then it is known as in situ conservation, that is conservation in their natural habitat. It's a very simple classification. Ex situ meaning what? Outside their natural habitat. In situ meaning what? In the natural habitat. Okay. However, we do have certain constraints when it comes to biodiversity conservation. What are these constraints? One is low priority for conservation of living natural resources. Low priority for conservation of living natural resources. Exploitation of living natural resources for monetary gain. Exploitation of living natural resources for monitoring gain. Third is values and knowledge about species and ecosystem are inadequate. That is inadequate knowledge, inadequate values and knowledge. And finally, unplanned urbanization and industrialization is hampering our conservation activities. Unplanned urbanization and industrial activities is or nothing but population growth of humans is hampering biodiversity conservation. Okay, so next let me briefly give you an introduction to something known as IUCN Red List. So here IUCN stands for the International Union for Conservation of Nature. The International Union for Conservation of Nature, which is located in Switzerland. So this IUCN has come out with something known as the IUCN Red List. The IUCN Red List. Now, the IUCN Red List of threatened species, or simply sometimes known as the Red List itself, was founded in 1964 and is the world's most comprehensive inventory of the global conservation status of biological species. So this red list uses a criteria to it uses a set of criteria to evaluate the extinction risk of thousands of species and subspecies. So these criteria are relevant to all species and all regions of the world. So let us briefly go through the different categories under this particular IUCN red list. Now, when it comes to this red list, species are classified by the IUCN red list into a total of 9 groups, which are specified through criteria such as rate of decline, population size, the area of geographic distribution, and degree of population, as well as distribution fragmentation. So there is an emphasis on the acceptability of applying any criteria in the absence of high quality data, including suspicion and potential future threats, so long as these can be reasonably supported. So what are these 9 categories when it comes to your IUCN red list? So for the first category is extinct. Now, a particular species is considered to be extinct if there is no doubt, I mean it is beyond reasonable doubt that the species is no longer existent, it is no longer extinct. That is when we call the species to be extinct. It is no longer existing beyond any reasonable doubt. This is the first category. Second category is extinct in the wild. Extinct in the wild. Now, when a species is classified or categorized as extinct in the wild, it means that such species survives only in captivity, cultivation, and outside its native range, which are presumed after exhaustive surveys, obviously. So these are nothing but those species which survive outside its natural environment, and it is only present, or it is only grown or reared or cultivated in captivity. Therefore, they are extinct in the wild. Third is critically endangered. Third is critically endangered. Now, a species is referred to as critically endangered if the species in a particular is actually existing in a particular and extreme critical state. So when a species are critical and its existence itself is endangered, so that it may become extinct very soon if care is not taken, that is when we will consider a particular species to be critically endangered. So what is the criteria for an organism to be considered to be critically endangered? So a species will be considered to be critically endangered when its population reduces by more than 90% in the last 10 years. So if the population of a species reduces by more than 90% in the last 10 years, then we say it is critically endangered. Or the population size of a particular species is less than 50 members. When the population size of a particular species is less than 50 mature individuals, then also it is considered to be critically endangered. Then if quantitative analysis shows that the probability of extinction in the wild is at least 50% in 10 years, then also it is considered to be critically endangered. Therefore, it is very important that we give importance to those organisms or species which are considered to be critically endangered, because it is possible that they might go extinct in the near future. Then we have endangered species. Then we have endangered species. Now, species or organisms may also be classified as endangered. Now, these are organisms which are at a high risk of extinction in the wild. They are also at a high risk of extinction in the wild. Now, a species is considered to be endangered if the population size reduces by 70% over the last 10 years. If it reduces by 70% in the last 10 years, or the population size is less than 250 mature individuals, or if the quantitative analysis shows that the probability of the species going extinct is at least 20% within the next 20 years, then it is considered to be endangered. The next classification is vulnerable. The next classification is vulnerable. Now, an organism can be considered to be vulnerable if the reduction in population of the species is more than 50% in the last 10 years. Critically endangered is more than 90% reduction. Endangered is more than 70% reduction. Vulnerable is more than 50% reduction in the last 10 years. Or the population size has reduced to less than 10,000, or the population size has reduced to less than 10,000, or the probability of the species going extinct in the wild, is at least 10% within the last 10 years. The sixth classification is, or categorization, is near threatened. It is near threatened. Now, these are organisms or species which do not qualify to be considered to be critically endangered or vulnerable, but they are under threat of going extinct in the near future. They are under threat of going extinct in the near future. Then we have least concern. Now, least concern, this refers to such organisms which are widespread and abundant in nature, and these are unlikely to go extinct in the near future. The eighth categorization is data deficient. It is data deficient. Now, species or organisms may be categorized under this particular category, that is data deficient, when there is inadequate information about that particular species to make a direct or indirect assessment of its risk of extinction based on the information which is available to us. So, it does not mean that it is not under threat. It may be under threat or may not be under threat, but as of today we do not know. And finally, the ninth categorization is not evaluated. It is not evaluated. Now, this refers to such species which have not been studied or evaluated to determine its risk of survival in the wild or nature. So, even when it comes to not evaluated, we really do not know if it is actually under threat or if it is not under threat. So, these are the 9 categories of IUCN Red List. Now, it is important that you know these 9 categories, especially if any particular species is referred to in the newspaper to have moved into any new category, then such species will have to be remembered. You will have to make note of such species, and some of the important species you will have to know if it falls under any of the particular category, especially critically endangered, endangered or vulnerable, and any other conservation efforts by the government at the national level or even at the international level. So with this video, I hope you've had some understanding about biodiversity. If you do have any doubts, please do write to us in the comment section. If you did like the video, please do follow us, and thank you for watching this video.